She was known as the most honest doctor in the hospital, but her own daughter couldn't tell the truth to save her life. What Dr. Sarah Martinez discovered about those lies would shatter everything she thought she knew about family. Dr. Sarah Martinez had dedicated her entire life to healing others. At 42, she was a head of pediatric surgery at St. Mary's Children's Hospital, known for her unwavering integrity and compassionate bedside manner. Her colleagues respected her, her patients adored her, and her success was built on a foundation of absolute honesty. But there was one thing missing from her perfectly ordered life: a family of her own. After years of failed relationships and fertility struggles, Sarah had made peace with the idea that motherhood might not be in her cards. That is, until she met 15-year-old Maya Chun at the hospital's affiliated group home. Maya was small for her age, with dark hair that fell across her face like a shield and eyes that seemed to hold secrets too heavy for someone so young. She had been in the foster system for 8 years, bouncing from home to home, leaving behind a trail of frustrated families and caseworkers who labeled her as difficult and troubled. The girl had been brought to the hospital after a minor accident at the group home, and something about her immediately caught Sarah's attention. Maybe it was the way Maya held herself, guarded yet defiant. Or perhaps it was a spark of intelligence that flickered behind her defensive exterior. Sarah found herself visiting Maya's room more often than necessary, drawn to conversations that revealed glimpses of a sharp mind trapped behind walls of mistrust. Maya was scheduled to be transferred to another facility across the state when Sarah made an impulsive decision that would change both their lives forever. Against the advice of friends and colleagues who warned her about taking on a problem child, Sarah began the adoption process. The caseworker, Mrs. Henderson, was blunt in her assessment. "Dr. Martinez, I have to be honest with you," she said, sliding a thick file across the desk. "Maya has issues with truthfulness. She's been caught in countless lies, big ones, small ones, elaborate stories that go on for hours. Every family that's tried to help her has given up because they couldn't trust her. She'll look you straight in the eye and tell you the sky is green if she thinks it served her purpose." Sarah listened to the warnings, read the reports, and reviewed the long list of Maya's documented deceptions. Stories about imaginary friends who turned out to be real people she'd met online, false allegations against foster parents that were later recanted, elaborate tales about her past that changed with each telling. The pattern was clear and concerning, but something deep in Sarah's gut told her there was more to the story. The first months of their life together were exactly as challenging as everyone had predicted. Maya tested every boundary, questioned every rule, and seemed incapable of giving a straight answer to even the simplest questions. When Sarah asked about her day at school, Maya would spin elaborate tales about imaginary field trips and made-up assignments. When questioned about missing items around the house, Maya would create increasingly complex stories involving break-ins, forgetful delivery people, or mysterious disappearances. Sarah found herself constantly playing detective, fact-checking every story, verifying every claim. It was exhausting and heartbreaking. She began to understand why other families had given up. The lies weren't just frequent. They were creative, detailed, and delivered with such conviction that Sarah sometimes found herself doubting her own perception of reality. But Sarah was nothing if not persistent. As a surgeon, she had learned to look beyond surface symptoms to find the root cause of a problem. She began to notice patterns in Maya's lies. They weren't random or malicious. They served specific purposes. Maya lied to avoid disappointing people, to make herself seem more interesting, to deflect attention from topics that made her uncomfortable, and most tellingly, to create elaborate scenarios where she had control over situations that had once left her powerless. The breakthrough came 6 months into their life together, during what started as just another evening of homework battles and creative excuses. Maya had spun an intricate story about why her history report wasn't finished, involving a computer virus, a power outage, and a sick friend who needed help. Sarah was preparing her usual patient but firm response when something in Maya's expression stopped her cold. For just a moment, the mask slipped. Sarah saw past the defensive lies to the terrified child underneath, a girl who had learned that the truth was often too dangerous to tell, too painful to face, and too risky to trust anyone else with. That night, Sarah did something different. Instead of challenging the lie, she sat down next to Maya and said quietly, "You know, When I was in medical school, I used to make up stories about why I couldn't go out with friends. I told them I was too busy, too tired, too broke. Anything except the truth, which was that I was scared they'd realize I didn't belong there. Maya's eyes widened, and for the first time since they lived together, she didn't have a quick response ready. The truth was, Sarah continued, I came from a family where no one had ever gone to college, let alone medical school. I felt like a fraud every single day. So I lied. Small lies, protective lies, lies that helped me survive until I was strong enough to handle the truth about myself. That conversation opened a floodgate. Over the following weeks, Maya began to share fragments of her real story. Not the sanitized version in her case files, but the raw, honest truth about her childhood. She told Sarah about the neglect that had forced her to lie about having food at home, so teachers wouldn't ask uncomfortable questions. She revealed how she'd learned to create elaborate stories about loving family members to avoid the pitying looks from classmates who knew she was in foster care. Most heartbreakingly, Maya confessed that she'd been telling lies for so long that sometimes she wasn't sure what was real anymore. She created an entire alternate reality where she had control, where bad things didn't happen to good people, where she was a hero of her own story instead of the victim. I know you want me to stop lying, Maya said one evening, tears streaming down her face. But I don't know how to be the kind of person who tells the truth. What if the truth is too ugly? What if you decide you don't want me anymore when you know who I really am? Sarah felt her heart break and mend simultaneously. She pulled Maya into her arms and said, the truth is never too ugly for love, and you're not going anywhere, not ever. The transformation didn't happen overnight. Maya had spent years perfecting the art of deception as a survival mechanism, and unlearning those patterns took time, patience, and professional help. Sarah found them a therapist who specialized in trauma-related behavioral issues, and together they began the slow work of rebuilding Maya's relationship with truth and trust. Gradually, the elaborate lies gave way to smaller, more manageable truths. Maya began to share her real thoughts, her genuine fears, her authentic dreams. She admitted that she wanted to be a writer, not because she enjoyed lying, but because she had a gift for storytelling that had been twisted by circumstances into something darker. 2 years later, Sarah sat in the audience at Maya's high school graduation, watching her daughter give the valedictorian speech. Maya spoke honestly about her journey from the foster system to finding her forever family, about the difference between creative storytelling and defensive lying, and about the courage it takes to tell the truth, especially about yourself. My mom taught me that the truth isn't always easy, but it's always worth it, Maya said, her eyes finding Sarah's in the crowd. She showed me that love doesn't require perfect honesty from day one. It requires a commitment to grow into honesty together. After the ceremony, a woman approached Sarah with tears in her eyes. I'm Mrs. Patterson, she said. Maya lived with us for 6 months when she was 12. We gave up on her because of all the lying. Seeing her today, I wish we'd been more patient. I wish we'd looked deeper. Sarah smiled sadly. Maya needed someone who understood that her lies weren't really about deception. They were about protection. Sometimes the people who seem the most dishonest are actually protecting the most fragile truths. As they drove home that night, Maya turned to Sarah and said, "Thank you for seeing through my lies to find the real me." Sarah squeezed her daughter's hand. "Thank you for trusting me with your truth, even when it was scary." Sometimes the most broken people aren't asking you to fix them. They're asking you to love them while they learn to fix themselves. And sometimes the biggest liars are just people who haven't yet found someone safe enough to tell the truth to. If you like that story, please subscribe for more videos. Thank you, and until next time.